Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast, where we'll explore adventure, spirituality, and empowerment through the outdoors and beyond. Join me, Karla Amador, as we focus on topics around the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also hear inspiring stories, get educated, and more. Let's get started. Are you ready to take a life-changing journey? Join me for a hike per week or 52 hikes within a year at 52hikechallenge.com. Gain the physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also gain access to community, education, resources, and more. Plus, get 10% off on your sign up and first order with code RISE25. That's RISE25. See you on the trails. Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast. Thanks so much for being with us on this season that is all about hiking basics. And in today's episode, I wanted to talk all about footwear. Good footwear when hiking is one of the most important things that I think that you should invest in when you are taking something like the 52 Hike Challenge, or you know you're going to commit to getting outside on a weekly basis. Your feet are going to be walking for miles on end, possibly. So you want your feet to be comfortable. And there's a lot of things to consider when it comes to hiking. I want to start off with just saying that I'm really grateful that I have a special guest today. I have Scott from Oboz, and I absolutely love Oboz Footwear. They have been a huge part of our challenge. They have supported us throughout the years. It's just been such a wonderful partnership. I really am grateful because it's a company that not only supports small businesses like 52 Hike Challenge, they plant a tree with every shoe that is sold, in addition to the fact that they are a B Corp. So I'm going to stop there because I want to introduce Scott. Scott, thanks for being on this podcast with me today.
Thanks for having me, Karla. It's a pleasure.
I guess let's get started with, do you have a little bit of information on the B Corp and what that entails for people who might not know and understand what a B Corporation does?
Yeah, really. B Corp is a lot of people take it as sustainability, right? And for us, it's about the three C's that Oboz typically calls it: climate, community, and circularity. Climate, obviously, we want to be a sustainable company. We want to build shoes that stay on your feet and out of a landfill. How many times have you bought a pair of shoes that after a month or so they start to break down? That's not something we want in our footwear. We want our footwear to last. And it starts with building of quality footwear and what we refer to in the industry as EPMs, or environmentally preferred materials, such as 100% recycled polyester mesh on some of our footwear, to 100% recycled shoelaces as well. These are all stances that we just want the shoes to last and, again, essentially stay on your feet. Community. We work with people like yourself with 52 Hike Challenge, for instance, as an example, to localize community events here in Bozeman, Montana. Oboz stands for Outside Bozeman. We're really about giving back to the community and educating not only on footwear, but on foot hygiene and foot health, which is a big part of our conversation today. And lastly, circularity. We want our customers to know as to what it is, the products that we're using, we're putting into our footwear, how we're incorporating that into our footwear, down to where our shoes are manufactured, to fair labor practices, above and beyond. We want to be transparent with our customers at the end of the day as to the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why of our footwear.
Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing that information. So ultimately, I love that you guys are focused on sustainability, as you said, community building. That's really important. So let's jump into foot health first,
Yeah,
because
sure.
if you're going to be hiking for miles on end, what is the top thing that happens is your little puppies start barking at you. And I know the more I'm on my feet, I notice that my feet just start hurting after, I don't know, like 6 or 8 miles. I'm kind of like,
Sure.
okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit tender. So share any information with our listeners about why they might want to consider thinking about their footwear when it comes to that foot hygiene and how to
Yeah.
ensure that they're taking care of their feet, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. It all starts with the proper fit, right? And so how many times or how many pairs of shoes, and I'll be true to this, is I buy shoes just on looks alone. They look great, and I want them to fit my foot perfectly because they're a beautiful shoe on the exterior. But once I put them on, they're not the most comfortable pair of footwear. And I'm just taking a calculated guess as to that footwear and fitting my foot properly. It all starts with what we refer to as using the Brannock device. That is this device right here. It's an old archaic piece of equipment, but it is still a really good piece in the fact that it really tells us where we need to be in overall length, width, and arch. So when you go to what we refer to as a sit and fit or your favorite footwear store, don't be afraid to ask them to go ahead and pull out the Brannock device. Is the Brannock device 100% accurate? No, it's not, but it gives us a really good litmus test as to where we need to be in length, width, and arch. If we can get a really good general idea as to where those three measurements align, the better off you're going to be in overall fit and comfort of your footwear. Oboz truly wants to be the fit brand. We want to take the time to educate you that fit really does matter at the end of the day. And with this Brannock device, we're going to do a sitting and a standing position. Why would we do a standing position? Do you have any idea, Karla, on a measurement why we would do such a thing?
I feel like your bones might stretch out a little more.
Totally.
That's just my initial thought.
Yeah. Yeah. When we're hiking or backpacking, and you mentioned earlier just about being on your feet for long periods of time, not hours, but even maybe days,
Mhm.
our feet tend to swell. Let's keep in mind that foot splay and swelling is real, specifically also while you're wearing a weighted pack or an unweighted. We're going to get different variances. So, this Brannock device will give us a good idea, a good litmus test as to where we need to be on those three measurements. Okay. And don't be afraid when you go into the footwear store to do your research before ahead of time. Maybe pick three different brands if you could. I generally say don't pick more than three different brands because then we get into what we refer to as foot confusion. Yeah, it sounds corny, but it's a real deal. After three pairs of shoes, you start asking yourself this one, that one, this one, that one. I say generally go with three brands, right? Get that and do your research. Do your research on waterproofing, on different materials. Don't be afraid to ask yourself the questions, the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. And what I mean by that is how do you intend to use your footwear? Where do you intend to use your footwear? Because these are all going to be questions that hopefully the sit and fit company that you go to or your favorite shoe store are going to ask you. If they're educated, they're going to ask you those questions ahead of time. Case in point, do you want to use a nubuck all leather boot when you're going to Costa Rica? Probably not. You want to have something with a little bit more breathability, such as the Catabatic Wind, for instance. And this shoe is a non-waterproof shoe, and it's intentional to be non-waterproof for a high sense of breathability. If you're around water and you need a fast drying footwear, this is a great option. And then we also take a further look into something along the lines of the Catabatic RT with the Catabatic franchise. This has Gore-Tex Invisible Fit waterproofing liner on the inside of the shoe. Not only is it highly waterproof, but it's highly breathable and is abrasion resistant, 100% recycled polyester mesh, very aggressive on the trail. And it's very structured shoe. meaning that this is more, I would classify as a hiking and a backpacking footwear because it stabilizes your foot in place. Although it is a low, it is offered in a mid as well, too, if you need that proper protection. But another thing to keep in mind is this thing right here. This is what we refer to at Oboz as the O-Fit insole. A lot of great shoe companies build really great footwear on the exterior, but often one area of major neglect is what they put on the inside of the footwear, and that is the insole. And with Oboz, we looked at that as a major opportunity and one area that we really pinpointed, especially on those long days when you're out on the trail. For reason being, you see these gel tabs right here, right?
Yeah.
Increase comfort against stone bruising or what we refer to as foot fatigue, like you were talking about, being out on the trail. A nice structured pocket right there for your heel really locks and loads the foot in place. And then we also talked about arch support, right?
Mm.
Our insoles are going to be at a medium arch support. Oftentimes, people are looking for, say, a zero drop or a high arch instep. That Brannock device is really going to help us tell you where you need to be. Oboz simply offers at this time a medium arch support. So if you need more arch support, and that Brannock says that you have a rather high instep, then chances are you're going to have to go to a third party option, such as like a super feet. Oboz truly at this time only offers a medium arch support because generally majority of the pack out there is going to be at that medium arch support. Dual density EVA foam, so really cushioning. You want to pull out your insole periodically while you're out on the trail. Why? Because you want to examine it. And what I mean by that is if you pull it out and you're showing certain areas of discrepancy or pack out, chances are it's time to go ahead and replace those insoles. So, Karla, we go to a lot of events around the country and we come equipped with insoles that we give away. In fact, you and I are going to CDT days next week,
Yep.
which will be handing out hundreds of insoles to weary through hikers that are wearing a weighted pack and need the proper arch support underfoot. A
Yep.
lot of these folks out on trail don't even realize that they need to replace their insoles. At
Mm.
Oboz, we simply say every 500 miles or so is a good area to possibly replace, or when your feet are telling you that it's time. That's the other telltale sign is people often ask me, when should I replace my insoles? And my answer to that is simply put, your feet will tell you. Generally, right? If our feet aren't happy, it's going to work up our entire body, right? So it's really imperative that we take the time to ensure that we have a proper insole inside our footwear.
Absolutely. Gosh, you said so many things that I want to go back to. So, one of the things that I want to share is I've been very blessed to do a lot of hiking over the last 12 years. And that includes through hiking. And obviously, today's episode is geared more towards beginners. This is the basics of hiking. But yes, if you ever dream of through hiking or multi day backpacking, which is a very reasonable goal for someone who's just starting out and wants that experience, your feet, like what you said is so true, Scott. When we did the John Muir Trail, it was me and one of my best friends, and our feet completely changed. Her feet actually grew, she says, a little bit from that trip because we were on our feet day in and day out for a long period of time, and your feet swell, like you said. So you definitely want to make sure that when you get fitted that you're considering all of these things, and without that fitting you might be in a shoe that's way too small for you.
You
So
might be a completely different size. I
absolutely.
often hear doing outreach and education for Oboz, I often hear, I measured my foot by the Brannock device and I was a complete size off. This was the size that I was since I was in high school. And we hear that over and over again. So getting properly fitted out of the gate is hugely important.
Yeah.
Also, washing your feet, trimming your toenails. If you're not taking care of your feet when you're hiking, specifically backpacking or section hiking or through hiking, you're in for a miserable experience. So it's really imperative that you take care of number one. And number one starts with your feet. and the footwear that you're wearing.
100%. On that topic, losing toenails, I've heard, and I don't know how true this is, but a lot of times it could be related to how you're lacing your shoes. We're not going to fully get into lacing systems. We just wanted to touch on them, that there are different methods to tie your shoes so that you have more comfort, or when you're going downhill versus uphill. We recommend you look up videos. I know Oboz has a couple videos on YouTube about this. We actually wrote a blog about it. So go to our website and look at our blog, and you will find a whole article on lacing systems in there. Also, so what I've heard with losing toenails is a lot of times if your nails are long, that you're hitting the front of your shoe going downhill, that will cause the bruising sometimes for your nails to fall off. And that's why it's important to trim your nails when you're going to be hiking a lot, and especially doing that downhill. And then one tip on the blisters: the moment you start feeling a hot spot, and you know what I'm talking about, you're hiking and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, something's feeling a little raw or it's burning, that's a sign to stop and care for it. So do your research on how to care for blisters. Really important to carry that blister band-aids, or there's like a lot of ways to care for it. One of the best things I found for me is the Luca tape. If you don't know what Luca tape is, it's very sticky and it can stay on your feet for days, but it absolutely helps. The moment I feel a hot spot coming on, I stop, I'll sit, I'll take care of it, because it will become a problem. And the last thing you want to do is take your shoes off at the end of your hike and realize, oh my gosh, I've got this huge blister and now you can't hike for a few days. On that note, do you have anything to add to those little tips we just gave?
Totally. Hearing a lot, ensuring no sliding back to front, side to side. You want to feel the footwear disappearing on your foot when you try it on at the store level. Now, I get that it's really hard to go to a footwear store and to know what it's going to be like out on the trail. But don't be afraid to spend 10, 15 minutes with the shoe on your foot, ensuring that you're not getting the wibble wobble or side to side or the heel slip that you were talking about. If we're doing our job and the footwear store is a true sit and fit, I refer to that over and over again. That's really taking the time to educate you with the Brannock device. And if we're nailing that length, width, and arch, and also the store manager, the assistant that's helping you with the footwear, if they're taking the time to properly open that footwear when they get it to you, that will be a huge difference too, to slide on your footwear, because then you will be able to take the time to pull it in and lock it in to your foot. But the importance when you go to the footwear store is ensure that that assistant is really helping you open that footwear from the beginning, right? Then you can lock it on your foot, or a heel lock system somewhere along the lines. As you mentioned, Oboz does have a number of different laces. We've got a YouTube channel. You have resources. There are plenty of resources and different knot techniques that help loosen or tighten the load. Look, no two feet are exactly alike, right? And everyone's foot is going to be different from left to right. Did you know that on the Brannock device, when we measure your foot, you're going to have two different variances on your left and right foot? So no two feet are exactly alike. It's really taking the time to loosen that shoe, get it in your foot, and then from there, determine how tight or loose we want to make. You might have a high arch, or you might have a foot that sits up high up on the center of the footwear. There are plenty of different knot techniques out there that can help loosen or tighten the load. And also keep in mind when you're out on the trail, again, the foot is going to swell after hours and hours. You want to be aware of that. But if take 10, 15 minutes, walk around the store and feel, are you slipping side to side? Is your foot moving up to the front, or are you not getting a secure heel lock? If you're not, then we need to look at some other options. And bottom line, we have different lace techniques to go. Such one that's really popular that you can find on Oboz is a heel lock lacing system. And we won't get into that too much, but know that Oboz has a YouTube channel. You have resources as well that,
Yes.
again, can help tighten or loosen that load at the end of the day.
For sure. Another thing and side tip, you can go, for example, to an REI, and a lot of the stores have this rock. And I don't know if everyone knows
Mhm.
this, but you can test going up and downhill on this rock. So just keep an eye out. The other thing I wanted to go back to is for the new hikers, people that are don't know much about footwear. I wanted to touch back on the materials, the
Mhm.
breathability, the Gore-Tex
Mhm.
materials, the Vibram soles, all of that, because for people who are new, they may not even realize what does breathability mean? What does it mean if it's waterproof? So I want to give those people who are new a very basic understanding of why they would want a breathable shoe that's maybe not waterproof or a breathable waterproof shoe, just so that they understand how crazy it is, the technology we have with that. And one last note, you may need different types of shoes for different activities. I have a shoe that's a light and fast hiker, which helps me to go fast if I'm going on a quick 5 mile day. I have something that's a little bit more sturdy, that's leather, if I'm going to go to hike in a rocky area. And then I have a winter boot for when there's snow. And I have a more mountaineering type boot. So if I'm going to be backpacking where it's very rocky for days, I might want to go with something like that. So there are so many options. And I wanted to say it's okay to get started with something that's going to fit most of your needs, but recognize that as you go on this journey of hiking and you keep transforming in your journey, you will probably have various types of shoes for different activities that you're going to be getting into. So with that, Scott, take it away because I know there's lots to talk about here.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about, but it really gets back to Karla doing your research before you go into the footwear. Don't be afraid to write down some notes to go ahead and ask the salesman or saleswoman when you're getting the footwear out. And my wife laughs at me. How many jackets can one guy have? I say I've got a lot of jackets, honey, and it goes to the fact that I use them in different situations in different environments. The same goes with your footwear. I have a quiver working for a footwear brand. I also have a lot of footwear, but I use them in varying degrees of terrain and environments. Be sure to ask your questions, the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why prior to going in. If you're just getting started, be sure to be asking the questions. Look, I'm going to be walking my dog. I'll probably be going on 5, 10 mile. My feet generally get hot regardless of whether I'm hiking or just wearing shoes. That's another thing to keep in mind too. We'll talk about socks because that's a whole other option too with those blisters that you mentioned earlier, those hot spots taking into occurrence. But there's a lot that goes into shoes. And Oboz has a premise as we refer to as the 4-pack system. And the 4-pack starts with such options. This is a component ring right here, such as your outsole and your Vibram outsole to our proprietary outsole, which is called Trail Tread technology. It's a third-party option, has been third-party tested, and certainly holds its own. I don't want you to think so much as the lug depth, but I want you to think about the rubber compound. Is it soft? Will it be aggressive on wet surfaces such as wet rock or wet granite? Those are options to keep in mind. And then obviously we talked about the outsole, right? And then materials and patterns on the footwear, whether that's leather, synthetic, suede. All those materials and patterns will dictate about 50% of the overall fit, feel, and comfort of your footwear. So these are all questions to go ahead and ask yourselves. But the midsole is really important, such as this shoe right here has the Catabatic Wind has a nitrogen infused midsole, super cush underfoot. It also has a carbon plate, fiber plate up in the front. What is that going to do? It's going to propel your foot forward. It's got a nice spring in the step, but it also protects your foot against stone bruising or foot fatigue inside. This shoe has a lot of tech. This shoe is also non-waterproof compared to the RT. which has Gore-Tex Invisible Fit waterproofing inside. How many of you go on a hike, it's raining, you put your rain jacket on, and then the second the sun comes out, what happens? You start sweating inside that jacket. It doesn't allow breathability. That is the beauty of the Gore-Tex Invisible Fit waterproofing, is not only is it highly waterproof and protects you against the elements, but it's also highly breathable in the fact it keeps your foot well centered between that dry and that breathable aspect, if that makes sense, especially for people that generally tend to run hot in their footwear. Regardless of any activity or not, I'm one of those guys. My feet just generally are hot in any kind of footwear. So having a sense of breathability is hugely important to me in my footwear. I guess what I'm getting at, Karla, is there's a lot of options out
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
And doing your research, I can't stress enough beforehand of really seeing differences with a Vibram outsole to
Yeah.
the waterproofing to a non-waterproofing to
Yeah.
a leather to a synthetic to a suede. These are all things that you should be asking yourself if you're going on a trip to Spain or to Costa Rica
Yeah.
or to Alaska in the dead of winter. These are all questions that you should be asking yourself. And going with these questions ahead is certainly going to benefit you in the long run, going to that salesman or that saleswoman.
For sure. I'm going to add a couple of quick notes for people in case you don't understand what breathable means. It means, especially with the Gore-Tex, water doesn't come in. It's waterproof, so water doesn't come in, but the heat is able to evaporate or it's able to escape. But
Yeah.
so that way your foot stays pretty comfortable and you're going to minimize the potential for things like I'm guessing blisters and
Hot
that kind of a
spots.
thing. Spots. Yep.
Yeah. Keeping in mind, look, Oboz has a lot of options in our footwear, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason that in one style alone, we can offer a waterproof shoe, a
Yep.
non-waterproof, a low, a mid. Our idea is to give our customers options in their footwear. We also make wide options as well, too, for a wider foot. And generally in Oboz, two critical touch points on the wide offering is you're going to gain the width in our wide options right in the forefoot in the front of the footwear. And the true DNA of Oboz is a locked heel with a wider forefoot with ample toe box room to allow for
Nice.
things such as foot swelling
Yep.
or to really stabilize your foot. If your heel is not locked in place, you are going to have those issues, Karla, that you mentioned earlier about your foot sliding forward or back. You
Yeah.
don't want to have that out on the trail because, again, why? If your feet aren't happy, it's going to reflect up your entire body, especially when you have a weighted pack and you're doing a backpacking trip. It's really important that you have a locked heel in place. You're giving your foot the proper arch support up in the front of the footwear and you're just having comfort underfoot. Having a comfortable foot is going to have a comfortable ride. You're going to be happy. The partners that you're with are going to be happy because you're happy and not miserable. It's a cyclical effect for sure.
What I wanted to talk about is for new hikers, one of the things and reasons why you want a good pair of shoes. If you look at a running tennis shoe, it's typically pretty flat on the bottom or like a gym shoe. When it comes to being outside, you're going to want some good traction because now you're in rocky, sandy. There's so many different types of terrain. So I wanted to touch on that real quick.
Mhm.
And since we're talking about the different levels, I did want to show you. So Scott showed you some short, like low level hiking shoes. And I wanted to show you that there are other options like this mid here. This is one of my current favorite hiking pairs of boots. It's a little bit higher than the low. And then also there is a high level boot. This is an example of a winter boot that I wear
You're getting
active.
some use out of that too. I love it.
I love it. Yeah. We should talk a little bit about maintenance too, by
Yeah,
the way, because I really
totally.
should clean these up. But
Totally.
anyhow, I just wanted to show you this is much higher. It almost fits like above my ankle. It's really warm for the winter time, but there's different levels. So also that's going to be stuff to consider. So
Yeah, I always
let's,
say Oboz has a boot for you.
yeah.
It's just a matter of, again, are we asking the right questions? How do you intend to use it? Where do you intend to use it? Our winter boots will have anywhere from 200 grams up to 400 grams added insulation inside the shoe. Going from 200 grams to 400 grams is a pretty significant difference. So you just want to really think about how you intend to use your footwear
For
because
sure.
that will help really pinpoint us as to where we need to be pointing you in your footwear. But I know and I'm confident between casual, light hikers, rugged trail to insulated to recovery, Oboz has you covered
Yeah.
for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about taking care of your shoes once you get
Sure.
them. You've invested some monies. There's a product out there called Nikwax. They make specific products that help to maintain and care for your gear, your footwear. They have a special soap that you can wash your leather and even waterproof stuff. But I'm not great about cleaning my shoes after hiking.
Mhm.
Sometimes I do. It's not as often as I should. But let's talk about why they should, Scott.
It's really important, Carla. We realize everything now is a little bit more money and hits the pocketbook a little bit heavier these days. So we want shoes to last. Remember, we went back to sustainable products and putting those back into our footwear, part of the B Corp. Really, the premise of our company is to build shoes, A, that fit, and B, shoes of quality, shoes that stay on your feet and out of a landfill. But a lot of times people don't realize that they have to do their part as well. So there are two key takeaways that I want to talk about. First is what we refer to as DWR. That stands for durable water repellency. That is a spray-on application out of the factory, a waterproofing spray-on application on all of our footwear, regardless of synthetic leather or suede. Generally, Carla, that's going to last anywhere from about 5 to 6 months on the footwear. But you may wear your shoes only in the office. Somebody else may wear them every day as a landscaper. You can see where that may be expedited. But Carla, let me ask you, what's the telltale sign that it's time to re-adhere waterproofing on your footwear? You have any guesses?
Yeah, the way that I've been taught is you can take a spray bottle and spray your materials and see if you have water bubbles appearing. If it's not, that's one way. Of course, if you're out hiking and suddenly you're like, "Why are my socks wet?"
Yeah. Yeah.
That's of course another way.
Yeah,
But those
the
are the
the
two
true
methods.
telltale sign is if water is not beating up on your footwear and it's saturating through the leathers or the suede or the synthetic, then it's time to re-adhere.
Yeah.
You mentioned Nikwax, it's PFC free, so it's safe to put down the drain. It's a product that adheres really well to the colors of our leathers. How many times have you used a certain kind of waterproofing to put on your favorite pair of boots to wake up the next morning and it's a completely different color and upsetting? But Nikwax works really well. And you mentioned cleaning. Now, I get if you're out on the trail that not every night you're going to be able to sit around the campfire and clean your shoes. But it is imperative that when you get back to give those shoes a good cleaning. And the reason being prior to putting on that Nikwax product is cleaning if you get in and all the stitching and get that dirt out. How many pairs of shoes have you had where the stitching starts fraying away? And once it starts, you start losing all this stitching. That Nikwax cleaning gel will really help prevent that and will get all the dirt in those little nooks and crannies that you typically can't get at. You've got a clean
Yeah.
pair of shoes, and then it's time to spray on the application. Spray, don't put it by a heat source. I recommend at night, just spray it on, put it in a well ventilated room, keep it out of direct sunlight, and just let it work its course over the night. You will wake up to a new pair of shoes.
Yeah.
I often say, what do we do when we go out in the sun? We put sunblock on, right, to protect our skin. Think about the same analogy for your footwear and the leathers. Leather wears, leather cracks,
Mm.
and proper maintenance on that with such a product as Nikwax is really going to keep the longevity of your footwear.
Yeah.
The other aspect of longevity to keep your shoes going is, again, looking at the quality of your insoles. Not only from a foot hygiene level, but just overall comfort too. Replacing your insoles, say every 500 miles, or again, like I mentioned earlier, your feet will tell you if you're tired, then chances are it's time to replace your insoles. Replacing your insoles and keeping up on DWR will keep your investment going for
Yeah,
years, not
for
months,
sure.
but years to come.
And I've also heard that like the dirt can actually wear away at the materials or
It,
damaging the materials. So just know that if you've bought a pair of shoes that were pricey, it's worth. For me, I clean them every now and then. I'm like,
yeah.
I'll sit down and be like, okay, time to clean my shoes. But yeah, especially if you're hiking all the time, put it in your calendar.
Yeah.
Hey, time to do some maintenance, just like a
Mhm.
car, right? Like
Yeah.
you got to think of it in that way.
Might be time to do maintenance on our feet as well.
Yeah.
Again, trimming those toenails, doing some blister repair, doing all these things because, again, it starts with your feet and works up your entire body. So,
Yeah.
keeping your shoes in good repair and keeping your feet in good repair will keep you going for many miles.
For sure. And to close this topic, because I want to jump into something different, but before I close it out, one of the things I like to do is when I'm heading out to the trail, I like wearing my sandals into the trailhead and then putting on my shoes. And as soon as I get back, I have my sandals. So I have, or a recovery shoe. So I have this pair of Oboz sandal. I call them my camp shoes.
Yep.
I usually just have these on, and it's so nice when you're done with your hike to take your shoes off and to put your feet into something comfortable. So I feel like this is really important with maintenance, in addition to having a bag in your car with potentially extra clothes, wipes, so that you can change if you got sweaty, or you have a new pair of socks in there, which is what we're going to talk about next. Snacks and even extra water. I like having a water bottle full in case I finished my water and I need to rehydrate. You can
Yeah.
have electrolytes. These are just great tips to think about because when I first started out, I didn't realize that. And I would drive home in my aching feet and boots and just like miserable. And sometimes I had a 1 to 2 hour drive depending on what I was doing. In addition, there are other options. These are great for camping too. I have this pair of Oboz footwear here that is more for like camping, or if it's winter time, this is really soft and cushiony. So I just want you to start thinking about being comfortable and how you can prepare for that.
You bring up that really good point, and I liked the analogy getting back to your car. Oftentimes, we don't think about the end of the hike. Who doesn't want some Gatorade or
Yep.
something to bring us back up, along with a snack? Think ahead,
Yes.
have your proper recovery. The two shoes that you were, or sandals that you were showcasing, are part of the Fakata
Hmm.
collection. Those are great recovery. A fresh pair of smart wool or darn tough wool socks on your feet
Yes.
and slide those puppies on. Your feet will thank you out of the gate. It will be a much better ride home to the house from the trailhead than not having them at all.
Absolutely. Let's talk about socks. Obviously, it is a big part of comfort. And you mentioned two brands. I personally love Darn Tough socks. They have such a great warranty, but also I've had multiple levels of their socks from their thin to their thick. And I've taken these socks with me on trips like the Camino de Santiago, Kilimanjaro. By the way, I know this is TMI, but when you're doing some multi-day backpacking, they don't stink. Like you just leave them out overnight and then the next day they're like good as new. After 2 days, I'm like, I'm ready for a new pair. But anyhow, that's the great part. So I'm gonna let you talk a little bit more about socks,
Yeah.
and anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think the takeaway, Carla, I heard you, many different kinds of socks out there. Given again the who, the what, the when, the where, asking
Mhm.
yourself, do you want a thick wool sock when you're going to Costa Rica? Probably not. You want something with a bit more ventilation in it. Much like footwear, much like oboes, Darn Tough has many different options and styles and fits of socks that are out there. But the key takeaway here, Carla, is that we're talking about wool and not cotton, right? I always say stick away from cotton because once it's wet, wool will work with you much like that breathability component. The best of both worlds, a nice pair of darn tough socks on your feet, coupled with a highly breathable shoe. It will help you avoid those issues, such as those hot spots that you were referring to earlier. It will keep your foot ventilated. But the takeaway here, Karla, again, is to stay away from cotton and really look for a well-fitted wool. You would be surprised as to how many different options of socks there are out there. And styles and coolness factor. Darn Tough
Yes.
has in-house creators that create some really cool designs. It's come a long way from just a traditional sock to a form-fitting sock to a light or heavy to some really cool artwork. The options
Yeah.
are endless out there. I prefer both Smart Wool and Darn Tough, but my heart is with Darn Tough because they've got a 100% guarantee on their socks. And who
Yeah.
doesn't like a 100% guarantee?
They're made in the US too.
Yeah.
There's also like different thickness levels. So if you are
Mhm.
going to be on your hikes for a long period of time, that all adds up. And it's a little bit of an investment, but personally, I have two that I mostly wear and they work well for me. I can pretty much use those for the whole week and it's a one-time investment and I've had them probably for 3 or 4 years and they're in great shape. And I
Yeah.
have actually had a time where I returned something and they were able to replace them.
Don't be afraid too. The last thing I want to point out too
Yeah.
is buy those socks ahead of time, socks you like, and put those socks on when you're going to try footwear on. There's so many instances where people come in to try footwear on with a very heavy sock, right? And that's
Yeah.
okay if that's what you do, but try to think ahead. The more preparation you can do before you walk into that foot store, the more you will be properly fitted and get you in the right pair of shoes moving forward. But really, maybe think about buying those socks ahead of time, wearing those on when you come in to try on your no more than three pairs of shoes.
That is a really great tip. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I just want to briefly touch on is gaiters. I've touched on them before. There's different levels of gaiters. I briefly mentioned this in a recent podcast on gear. There's a snow gaiter, there is a higher level of a gaiter, and then there's a really short, small one if you're in sandy conditions. And basically, gaiters help to keep the elements out of your feet. Also, for me, I add them as an additional layer when it's really cold, keeping snow out of my boot. Do you want to add on to gaiters and how your
Yeah.
footwear works with
Yeah.
that?
Totally. I pulled this shoe back up again. It's called the Katabatic Wind. A couple of call outs when you're looking at footwear. Some of these shoes are tailored specifically for gaiters. This shoe is in particular, it's got a little channel right up here in the front that you can hook a gaiter on. Everybody
Yeah.
see that little channel right there? Two, a reinforced over here too that goes right under, keeps the gaiter locked in this little side spot right here on the outsole to a stabilized heel. A lot of the gaiters, the short gaiters, will have a little Velcro stick-on piece. That is why we have a reinforced end here that it can really securely tighten. And then another feature, see this hook right here. You talked about this earlier, right? Karla, you may be doing river crossings or whatnot. A nice
Yeah.
carabiner if you don't want to get your shoes wet and you want to put your sandals on before you do a river crossing. This is a great option, right? Just put a
Yep.
carabiner through it, hook it right onto your backpack, and you've got shoes walking across your chest and not on your feet, which makes a huge difference. Company I really prefer when walking in environments like the CDT, New Mexico, Colorado, whatnot, is a Dirty Girl Gator. They come in really cool, different color styles, and they are a low gator, just a little bit above the ankle. So imagine right to about here. But then Outdoor Research has a full winter gator to a number of different selections of gators. Again, the options are endless. It's just really about how do you intend to use it? What's the environment? Summer, winter, fall? What does that look like? I prefer a shoe that has the options that can be compatible to a gator. So again, look for things such as a little hook up in the front or reinforced heel that something Velcro can stick onto to the channel down here on the bottom of the footwear that really secures. You'll have a piece of webbing that will come under the foot, really secures and up and over the shoe. Gaiters are nice because, again, you hit it on the nail, Karla, by saying it keeps the elements out of your feet. How many times have you been on a hike? Wait, guys, I gotta stop. I gotta empty my shoes because I've got so much junk inside of them. That's the purpose of a gaiter. It will really help keep the elements out of your footwear and will really secure up and tight on your ankle. Because at the end of the day, what do we have? We've got a big hole here in our footwear, right? That will keep the water out. It will keep the elements out, the little rocks, the dirt, the debris. Just a nice added element when you're out on the trail.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we pretty much touched on most of the things I wanted to touch on today. There is still so much more. We could talk about footwear and feet and all kinds of things. There's always something to learn. Is there anything else that you wanted to add that came up that maybe you didn't?
Think I've said it once and I'll say it again. I've said it a couple of times here is do your due diligence before you walk into that shoe store. Asking the right questions will really help that salesman or saleswoman really put you in the right footwear because if you don't come in prepared, we're shooting at the hip, right? And I can't stress enough about getting your foot on the Brannock device. Majority of all footwear company or footwear stores will have a Brannock device. And again, we are measuring length, width, and arch. The Brannock is not 100% accurate, but it's a very good litmus test as to where we need to be in those three components. And if we hit those three components, then we are winning. And lastly, don't be afraid to go outside the box. Typically, the saying, when the shoe fits, we tend to be pretty loyal to footwear companies because they fit our feet, right? We find a pair of shoes from a particular company, we tend to stay with it. Don't be afraid to go outside the box and try something different, but don't be afraid to do the research too and really figure out, do I need a Vibram outsole? Do I need Gore-Tex Invisible Fit waterproofing? Do I need waterproofing at all? Just ask these questions. Don't be afraid to go outside the box and really nail the fit. If we get all those, it's going to be a much better experience out on the trail.
Thank you so much, Scott. And
Yeah.
where can folks find out more and follow Oboz Footwear?
You can easily follow us on YouTube at Oboz Footwear too for some nice tutorials for the novice hiker to the expert hiker. But you can also find us out online at www.obozfootwear. And Oboz is OBOZ. We are creating conceptualized here in Bozeman, Montana, the greater Yellowstone ecosystem as our proven testing ground. We're a small niche company, but one thing we know is we know the trail because we're true to the trail. And we're a small company, just shy of 50 employees, but we live, breathe, hike. And we want to be the hike brand. And at the end of the day, we want the shoe to fit and we want to be the fit brand. So give us a try.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for everything. I hope you all learned a ton about footwear, feet, and all of the things. Feel free to leave any questions, comments, write in, let me know what you thought. Please share this with your friends and family, anyone new to hiking. And as always, thank you so much for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.